Um, I have some very important things to cover tonight about this program I'm revealing, the Melchizedek UFO file. We're going to get into it, and it is groundbreaking. Now, I want to say on this program, I've revealed things like the Blue UFO program, which I revealed it originally in March of 2023, then did a whole documentary on it in November of 2023, and put that out. And then in March of 2024, the government said, oh, yeah, we've got Blue, and here's what it is. And, they try to kind of take some of the teeth out of the whole thing by saying, well, Blue didn't actually recover anything. But yes, it was a program. Well, we put it on the record. We put a number of things on the record. And in that sense, we've been ahead of the curve. And instead of that being some kind of a victory lap or whatever, what I want it to do is to give us that confidence going forward that as they roll out false CIA, NSA, NRO programs for manipulating the public, including Immaculate Constellation, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. And I feel bad for Schellenberger. Of course, they're doing all the hearings on that on November 13th. That's going to be a circus. And it's a joke, and I'll show you why it's a joke. And the principal person that they have involved made a serious faux pas this week, and that is Lue Elizondo, who we've covered on this program, a CIA counterintelligence agent pushing a false UFO threat narrative for years, failing in public, lying in public, pushing narratives, and originally rolled out by the whole CIA to the Stars Academy crowd. And Jim Semivan setting that whole thing up, and Semivan being at the highest level of the CIA directorate. I mean, top guy. So, you're not dealing with just the low-level thing in terms of setting it up. But they've got somebody like Lou there, and they figure, well, we've used him in counterintelligence. And actually, his main claim to fame in the background, which we reported on this program, was that he was used as an interrogator for terrorists and things like that. How'd you like that for your UFO, come to Jesus moment? How'd you like a waterboarder guy to give you the truth about UFOs? I mean, this is a very sneaky situation, but he has been doing this tour in support of this book called Imminent, and I call the book Imminent BS. But he's like, the UFO truth, and all that. It's interesting that they use UFO in the title of that book after pushing this ridiculous brainwashing UAP term. They realize, well, if we want to actually sell it, it's going to have to be UFO. They were not able to turn that curve, although they continue to do it. And a lot of the people involved with the hearings in Congress coming up around UFO disclosure are incredibly ill-informed or getting fed the wrong information. And I've gone on the record previously about Michael Schellenberger, who last year, he's a good journalist actually, and last year he showed up around UFOs for the first time, was like, oh, this is really interesting. As soon as he expressed interest, he's like, wow, imagine my surprise, like 12 intel agents, no less than a dozen of these guys showed up and said, I have all this inside intel for you. Well, of course they did. They want to spin the UFO threat, and the UAP money train is coming through. Now remember, UFOs are real. Disclosure is a real thing, a real possibility. The CIA false UFO threat is completely bogus. And so Immaculate Conception, which I call really super clean, ultimately clean, immaculate constellation, that's a complete joke. And so they fed him this thing, and now it's like, gavel, gavel, we're going to do some hearings on this. It's another dog and pony show, much like the Grush antics, and they fed Grush a narrative. And the person who was behind the whole thing is the DOD billionaire, Chris Mellon. And he's been pushing this from the inside. Remember, he's originally the mayor of Area 51. He's the guy who came forward and said, you know what? In 2016, there are no UFOs and no aliens. The government wouldn't keep that from you. But suddenly in 2017, he changed his mind because there was some program inside the government to say, hey, we can release these things. We'll take that breakaway stuff we've been working on and roll it out with the whole story. And that's what they've been up to. We have exposed them, our lone outpost here at Dark Journalist, we certainly have exposed them on numerous occasions and opened up the right questions for people to ask. And remember, investigative journalism is adversarial journalism, but it's not personal. and it can never be personal. It's a very important thing for us to keep in mind. But I can say that they had some of the worst moments this week because Elizondo, in promotion of his book, Imminent BS, he went out there and he said, oh, he was showing these different UFOs, and he showed images of a UFO that he said was a mothership over Romania. And he said that he had talked to the pilots about the length of the whole thing and all the rest of it. It turned out that this image, which I am going to show you here shortly, is from a Facebook group. They put it out 5 years ago, and it turned out to be the reflection of a chandelier inside the guy's apartment. He was shooting out the window. And here is Lue saying, oh, it's a mothership. Look at the size of that thing. I talked to the pilots. You wouldn't believe it, et cetera, et cetera. The whole thing is bogus. Now, a number of us out here on the independent side said the story tracks back. It's bogus. And so Elizondo tried to gain some credibility back. And guess what he said?
What did he say?
He said, the government tricked me with that image. Lue, you are the government. You still work for the government. You never left the government. That's the whole joke about you being a whistleblower who resigned in protest. I revealed in this program on multiple occasions since 2019, 2018, that you never left the government. You've always been working for the government, and you've always been under the tutelage of the CIA or the DNI, and that's a fact. It's not even debatable. And when you were confronted dead on with it, finally, someone at The Intercept asked him a real question, which is amazing, because after all the softballs from Dolan and Knapp and all those people, it's a disgrace. Finally, he said, well, yeah, I do work for the government, but it's not what you think. Yeah. Kind of a sleazy excuse there, but what else do you expect? I put on record that he and the activities behind him are being orchestrated by James Clapper, and everyone said, Lue would never work for Clapper, blah, blah, blah. I said, he says in his own bio that he worked for Clapper. And then if you want any more proof, that's a shot of Lue with Director of National Intelligence Clapper, who, as we know, was cited in Congress and the Senate for lying to Congress and the Senate. He's behind the UFO threat along with Chris Mellon and the other guys. That's Lue, and that's Clapper. And don't take it from me, that's in his own book. Okay? So that pretty much lays that to rest. That's one. I have to point out another thing in relation to this group, and it's Gary Nolan. Now, I put my information out there about Nolan and all the rest and all the things that he was trying to do, and just said, well, he worked for the CIA and he's friends with Dr. Fauci. And again, all the, Lue faithful and all these people who think that the disclosure is going to happen through these CIA people, they came out and said, no, he's not. You're lying about, look, this is Gary Nolan's own tweet. Go through his own Twitter X account, all right? Thank you, Dr. Fauci, for your tremendously positive contributions to immunology and virology, okay? They're friends, all right? He's saluting Fauci. There's just no way around it. So if you want UFO disclosure served up by Dr. Fauci and James Clapper and Chris Mellon and all the CIA gang, then that's what you're going to get with Lue and all those people. But I did go on record pointing out that this thing with Lue was very shady. Now, Lue, in his own comments, I think are interesting in defending himself from the, and he admits that, it is a hoax picture actually. And my friends inside the government, my sources gave it to me. And now I'm really wondering what they were doing. As you all know, I'm always happy to be my own worst critic. This is Lue now. A photo that was provided to me by a friend in government, yes, a couple of years ago, was presented by me 2 days ago at our engagement in Philadelphia. Looks like we can put this one to bed. Yeah, except that you said that you talked to the pilots and they told you all about it. Well, that was a lie. So that's the first lie. Apparently, the second lie is that somebody in government gave this to you. You floated it out there, and, it's interesting because we have to remember that Mellon himself, we have to track this too, why they like putting out false stuff as real, because we know they have access to the real thing, but they don't want to show any of that. But they do want all the accolades of having shown it without actually having done it. This is Chris Mellon doing a Nimitz UFO presentation, and that was proven out to be a Mylar balloon. Now look, as the mayor of Area 51, he has access to all kinds of high-res images of UFOs. He used a phony on purpose. So did Lue. That shows the kind of contempt that the intel community has for average people in relation to this. Let's get real, all right? This is a phony, fake, completely false CIA operation to create a UFO file threat that does not exist. And they're taking the real genuine interest and the real genuine UFO file, which totally exists, as we've done on this program, goes all the way back through researchers in the 1940s and 50s. They've been tracking it. These guys came along and decided, after denying it for years and pretending it was them trying out, their own advanced stuff. Oh, UFOs, that was just us. Instead, what happened, and it's quite interesting, is they decided, oh, we're going to hop on this and we're going to do this whole UAP train. And it's been very frantic effort on their behalf and sloppy. 7 years of this nonsense. And we have unmasked them over and over again. Nonetheless, the CIA has the clout, and you see this guy on the Daily Show, Elizondo out there, he's the UFO whistleblower who was disgruntled. And, you see all these podcasts picking him up. I would say in our own independent arena, you have to be disappointed in people like PBD or something. You put this guy on, where are the people giving him some kind of cross-examination, not just letting him go out there with a bunch of lies. Absolutely ridiculous. You don't get the truth that way either. So we need a huge overhaul in how all of that is done. And instead, what you get, and I have to say, it's I actually find it distasteful to go in deal with other researchers. In my opinion, anyone can research anything they want, and Lue can put out even sleazy imminent books or whatever. But when you start to get to the point where you're dragging the public into it and you're taking people off a cliff and you're creating a false UFO threat with the help of Congress and all the rest, that's when we are stopping you. And for sure, we're stopping you. Make no mistake. Now, the satellites around this whole thing who have allowed it to happen on the UFO side, I've used off of them because at a certain point you're like, Knapp and Corbell and Dolan and Nick, whatever his last name is, all those guys. No. Nick Redfern, actually, I like his work a lot. He's our friend there from the UK.
Oh,
Oh, Nick Pope, that's it. Yes. I just don't deal with them because, like I said, anyone can do any kind of research that they want to do. And by the way, this is the most open-minded show about the UFO file. And we've talked to people who've had deep experiences. I know a whole series of contactees. I know people who've worked in government programs and reverse engineering the stuff. It's what we are objecting to here is the false CIA UFO threat version. That's the key. That is the key. Make no mistake. All right. So now, from just as like, oh, this is funny. Just as this happened, a couple of interesting things showed up on the radar. So Dolan starts bragging about, oh, hey, I'm friends with Elizondo. He's coming on the show, everyone. Yay. So, Dolan knows better. And it's interesting, as someone who's been around, like Dolan was part of our original secret space program conferences and things like that. And, I haven't followed his work in like 10 years or something. I think all the wind went out of that. But nonetheless, I feel particularly like he knows, and he knows what these people are up to, and he's kind of plugging himself in for a seat at the table of whatever this stuff is. And so my message to people like that is that I'm not interested in criticizing you or your work, but when you join forces with these people who we are in an effort to expose because they're lying to the public, then you're going to get caught in that kind of examination crossfire. And what we've asked for from them over and over again are a gentleman's debate. As somebody suggested the other day, I debate Dolan. I have no interest in debating Dolan. I want to debate Lue and Chris Mellon. Those are the people who've ducked it, you understand? Not these little front people they've manipulated. But anyway, Dolan on his own social media, and so I can read this because it's public, it says, "Hi, everyone. It's important to note that Lue Elizondo's new book is out. The full title is Imminent: Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs. And yes, he uses the word UFO, although Chris Mellon uses UAP in the foreword. Yeah, because he's the the master string puller in the background, as we've shown. I downloaded my ebook copy yesterday and started reading it, but I have a long way to go before I can give it a proper review. Lou and I are in touch, and I congratulated him on his release. Look, he's a CIA counterintelligence asset, and he's trying to snowball the public into a UFO threat, and you're congratulating him? In the meanwhile, he agreed to do a spot on my YouTube channel soon. So you're going to trot this guy out for your audience. You already have. You've interviewed him. So none of this is surprising. But I think now on the heels of this false, the lying to the public. And by the way, those people paid. So for him to lie to them on the spot and saying, oh, I talked to these pilots, that's total BS. He didn't talk to any pilots because the picture comes from Ancient Discoveries Facebook. So, he goes on there and says, based on everything that's out there in Lou's book, these are the main points. UFOs represent a very serious national security effort due to their a national security issue due to their advanced capabilities. This is the UFO threat. So if people on the UFO side are going to jump in with Lue again after he did it the first time as the lone outpost again, they're going to be in the crosshairs of all this because we are exposing Lue and we're exposing the whole CIA effort all over again. And it seems like there's a little bit of recurrence here, but that's what we're here for. And, I promised this audience on a number of different occasions to keep the closest possible watch on the CIA's attempt to create a false UFO threat initiative. And I'm going to continue to carry that out. And, those people who are screaming in the background, oh, disclosure can only come from the CIA, the whole thing is unraveling. And I think Lou's lying in public is a great example of that lie. Everyone, you're watching the Dark Journalist Show.